24-hour radio, Studio B, promise on the cue card. The overnight lobby at WQZL smells like burnt coffee and second chances. Somewhere past the glass doors a tower hums to itself, throwing our voices over a city that pretends to be asleep. I signed in with the kind of pen that makes you briefly honest and slid my phone face down into my left pocket, the pocket I use for things that are supposed to make it home. The security light bleached my hand bones for a second and then gave them back. Back home, Theo had said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" in the voice that means please stay now. Our couch is good at auditions. If we sit at opposite ends long enough, it decides to be a witness stand. I left before either of us took an oath we'd hate by morning. On the stairwell, my screen lit with a message from R. Reese in my contacts, R in the way I label hazards to make them smaller. Studio B 5 minutes, just talk. Roofs forgive nobody in daylight, transmitters pretend they will. By day, I fix other people's paragraphs. By night, I try not to turn my own into weapons. Theo and I have a code that works when we remember it. T means come here, you awake. Means I'm scared. Tomorrow means not yet, but don't go far. Reese re-entered orbit 2 months ago wearing late-night linen and a laugh that sounds like a glass agreeing to be set down gently. He didn't ask for anything. That was how I started bringing him everything. The hallway beyond the lobby is a museum of albums that taught people a better argument. Red lights bloom over each studio door in the slow cadence of a sleeping heart. I press the intercom and the board op buzzes me through. Studio B's window looks into A, the flagship room where Reese hosts the city's midnight show and pretends to be everyone's accomplice. His profile sits in a collar of blue LEDs, mouth near a microphone that knows more about men than it should. He lifts 2 fingers toward the glass, not a wave, a metronome. Music fades, his voice does what it does, and the red on his side dies while the one above me blinks awake. The lock clicks. He slips into be carrying a stack of cue cards with the practiced economy of a man who's learned how to hold contrary stories in one hand. The aroma of voiced hours follows him in. Cedar, caffeine, and a little heat pretending to be confidence. "You came," he says, and grown men never tire of pretending arrival is a plot twist. "I brought the worst possible sentence," I say. "It's small, it fits in pockets." He sets the stack on the console and pulls a blank card from the middle, white and expectant. "3 words," he says, back of the card. "Why are you here?" 3 words is cruel. That's why they work. He offers a studio Sharpie, the kind that writes even on skin you swear you won't offer. I write proud at breakfast. Under it, smaller, touch before arguing. He reads the ink as if it has tone and slides the card under the fader bank where he can see it without the room having to admit it. He comes close in the way men come close when they're trying to behave. Heat arrives before hands do when strangers are off their shift and problems have left voicemail. "You booked a sponsor lunch for my better self," I say, because repetition is a blunt instrument and I brought one. "I booked decency," he says, mouth near my ear without touching. "It's a refundable ticket. You could cancel it in the elevator." I'm tired of being clever. "Clever's my shift," he says softly. "Accurate is yours." The board op coughs in A and the red light over our heads pops. Reese flips his mic live and leans through the connecting glass. "This is the after WQZL," he says, voice turned toward confessional. "Tell me what you meant to say and who you meant to say it to." He feeds a song with one hand and closes the door between us with the other. The sign returns to safe red, and time takes off its jacket. "You shouldn't be good at this," I say, because accuracy is poorly behaved in smaller rooms. "I'm good at wanting the truth and bad at letting it keep me," he says. He lifts his hand toward my lapel and lets the gesture hover an inch from my chest. The compliment is restraint, The cruelty is also restraint. He doesn't touch me. I hate him for that and love him for that, and both are the problem. We stand knee to knee as the song and builds a perfectly legal alibi. He inhales like the studio air just taught him something. Tell me no, he says, and it's the kindest kind of dare. I don't. I meet him in the Fool's Inch where heat and language exchange keys. His mouth is warm and exact and tastes like mint and the idea of lime. When his hand finds the back of my neck, his grip is the kind that understands material limits. My body answers like a courtroom that knows this witness will be dismissed and wants to hear him anyway. He makes the sound men make when a small country surrenders and calls it diplomacy. I make the one I've never liked in myself and trust in him anyway. We don't rush. We let breath set a tempo the transmitter can live with. His mouth finds the hinge of my jaw. Mine finds the place below his ear where regret's vocabulary gets misfiled. He rests his palm flat on my chest as if listening to a story he means to quote accurately later. The cue card stares up through the console like a little god. I reach for him because touch is a language and this studio has good microphones. He catches my wrist before reach becomes insistence and kisses me slower, which is a kind of yes that respects men who have to live with mornings. You are a bad idea with excellent diction, I say when we come up for air. Only because you're the part that reads out loud, he says, and kisses the honest corner of my mouth again. The song dies. The red light over flashes. He slips back through the door, voice on in a beat, giving a caller permission to use her own name and telling a man to go home if home is still an option. I watch, caught by the ugly grace of someone who knows how to tell the entire city the truth in pieces small enough to keep. He lowers the fader, kills the mic, and returns, his hands empty and too capable. We already cheated, he says. We cheated when we started telling each other the truth before we told it at home. That keeps happening, I say. I would like to fail differently. We booked a sponsor lunch with that sentence, he says. We could show up. Does Theo want to? He asks gently. Some days, I say, often enough to keep the lease. He nods as if we're agreeing on bit rate. He takes my wrist and moves it to his chest, and I feel the proof most men keep behind their sentences. The red outside our window glows steady. The song changes. The city shrugs and lets us try again. Tell me a better 3 words, he says. Touch me slower, I say, and this time he does. We kiss with care and with intention. Heat becomes precise instead of loud. When he guides my hand down, he does it like a man who respects tools. I close my fingers, and he exhales into my mouth a truth I wouldn't accuse him of confessing on air. He reaches for me, and I let him, and we stay quiet because walls prefer prose. We finish in the kind of silence a transmitter envies, our foreheads against each other while breath learns itself back into conversation. If I offered a room, he says, gathering the cue card like a witness he means to protect, would you say no? I would say I'm going home, I say. I want what I promised. That's accurate, he says, and the compliment lands like rest. He slides the card from beneath the faders and puts it in my left pocket with ceremonial slowness. His fingertips stay where they shouldn't a beat longer than the city allows and then leave. He straightens and becomes the man the console expects. Text me a weather report in the morning, he says. Tell me if the kettle beat the reasons. It usually does, I say, when we let it. The rest of his hour belongs to callers who still trust midnight. Mine belongs to the hall, the elevator that delivers men to consequences, the lobby security light that returns my hand bones and forgives them. Outside the tower, the city has made peace with the version of quiet the wind will tolerate. The crosswalk at Canal gives me time and I take it. The kitchen light makes a neat square on the tile. The fridge hums the way machines hum when they've decided to believe you. Theo sits on the floor with his back against the door, sleeves pushed to his elbows, one ankle crossed over the other, the posture manuals use when they draw people who are about to fix things. He doesn't ask where I've been. He turns his head slightly toward the space next to him. I sit there. "Do you want to be asked?" he says, voice steady, not performing mercy, offering it. "Please," I say, because prompts are scaffolding even when you're building a smaller house. "Are you lonely?" he asks. "Some nights," I say. "Not here. Not when you ask first. Not when the kettle outruns the reasons." I take his wrist and set his hand on my forearm the way he does when he needs to make sure I'm not inventing weather. His thumb traces once and believes me. "I feel useful," he says. "I want to be wanted before I'm useful." "Tonight's procedure," I say. "Touch first, argue second, report later." The kettle clicks like a stamp in a country that still believes in stamps. He stands and pours water over mint. We name it dinner because names are cheaper than regret. I take the cue card from my pocket and pin it under the lemon-shaped magnet so Proud at Breakfast faces the room. Theo reads it and his mouth does the smaller, braver thing. He takes the dry erase marker from the cup by the fridge and writes beneath the lemon, "Tomorrow, keep the torque." He doesn't grin. He nods and the room agrees to try. We make a rule that isn't noble. When prosecution tries to wear a bathrobe, one of us says Studio B and the other puts the kettle on while the first puts his hands where history can find them. We keep to 5 words when 5 are enough. We stop at the shoulder, not the ditch. We try to want what we promised, and when we don't, we write 3 words on small paper and tell the room where we failed and how we'll fail differently tomorrow. Days do what days do when you're trying to be an amateur human with professional consistency. The card in my pocket learns the shape of my left hand. Paper learns its carriers. On the late bus, I write messages to no one that begin "I didn't ask" because I thought that counted as kindness and "and may your breakfast go right." I don't send them. The not sending feels like a skill borrowed from towers that keep confidences. A week later, when afternoon tries to be a test, I cut through the block behind the station and buy nothing. I leave a bottle of water near the loading ramp with a note, "For whoever is waiting for a sister." The board op nods like a bridge that is held and will hold again. On my way home, I slip a blank cue card into my pocket and write "turn" toward your name across the clean side. I don't light anything. That night we eat toast like it has been newly invented. We fail, and fail differently, and fail in ways that don't require anyone to stand between red lights pretending to know which fader will save them. The room does not demand a verdict. The morning remembers its work. And when we say tomorrow out loud, it means only what we let it mean.